Story 1. The Case of Duncan Murphy. Duncan Murphy was a 72-year-old Irish immigrant who had made Australia his cherished home since the early 1970s. Living in the remote outpost of Silverton, a weathered settlement clinging to a long, dusty highway deep in the unforgiving outback, Duncan had long learned to find beauty in isolation. The vast, rugged landscape of inland Australia contrasted sharply with the well-tended urban life along the coast, and Duncan's daily routine was a testament to his quiet resilience in a place where nature ruled supreme. Each day, after a hard day's work at the local cattle station, Duncan found solace in the familiarity of his habits. The Rusty Rover Tavern, a modest establishment lit by the soft glow of oil lamps and steeped in decades of community lore, was where he spent his evenings. There, amidst the low hum of conversation and the rich aroma of roasted coffee, Duncan's presence was both comforting and reassuring to the townsfolk. His closest confidant was Leslie Burns, the kindly former owner of the tavern, whose warm smile and attentive ear had become his anchor in an often unpredictable world. On the cool, starlit evening of January 17, 2019, after exchanging pleasantries with friends and savoring his customary drinks, Duncan left the tavern with his usual measured step. Eyewitnesses recalled that he accepted a small package of leftover roast chicken from some travelers, a simple meal that later found its way into his humble microwave at home. His small, weather-beaten house, a structure as familiar as any landmark in Silverton, was situated barely 100 meters from the tavern. It had always been a symbol of his steadfast commitment to the community and the quiet rhythm of daily life. When the following morning dawned with an unusual stillness, the community's routine was shattered. Leslie, with a growing sense of foreboding, walked to Duncan's door and found it firmly shut. No lights glimmered in the windows. No familiar figure greeted her on the porch. The absence was palpable, and soon news of Duncan's disappearance rippled through Silverton. Neighbors recalled his gentle laugh, the way he'd nod in greeting at the passing dust on the highway, and how his presence had become a comforting constant in the unpredictable outback. The local police quickly mobilized a search party that soon swelled to include every available hand in town. Volunteers, many of whom had grown up hearing stories about Duncan's kindness, joined forces with trained rescue teams. Helicopters began to circle overhead, their searchlights cutting through the early mist, while well-disciplined search dogs sniffed the dry scrubland. Eyewitnesses from nearby homesteads reported fleeting shadows and odd sounds echoing across the barren expanses, but nothing conclusive emerged. During the investigation, several local residents recounted peculiar details about Duncan's recent behavior. Some remembered him mentioning a strange, nagging feeling of being watched during his solitary walks near the cattle station. Others recalled overhearing a tense conversation between Duncan and a mysterious visitor at the tavern a few days earlier, a visitor whose accent did not match any of the local dialects. Investigators combed through these accounts, interviewing local shopkeepers, retired workers, and even distant relatives who had flown in to help, all desperate to piece together a timeline that might explain his vanishing. As the days wore on, the investigation took on a broader scope. Forensic experts scoured Duncan's modest home for any overlooked clue, a misplaced photograph, a half-finished letter, or any sign of a planned departure. Every inch of the surrounding bushland was re-examined. Yet, the physical evidence stubbornly refused to tell a coherent story. The unresolved dispute with Marina Ellis, the pie shop owner, became an increasing focus. Rumors swirled about the extent of their quarrel, with some locals insisting that Duncan had once confided his unease about Marina's intentions. The tension between them was palpable, and despite Marina's impassioned denials, investigators could not entirely discount the possibility that the dispute had escalated into something far more sinister. In the wake of his disappearance, Silverton was left grappling with a deep sense of loss and unease. Neighbors began holding nightly vigils, lighting candles in the hope that Duncan might return. His disappearance, shrouded in silence and unanswered questions, soon became a part of local legend, a cautionary tale of how even the most steadfast souls could vanish into the vast, indifferent embrace of the outback. The case of Duncan Murphy lingered in the collective memory of the town, a mystery that was as expansive and inscrutable as the endless Australian horizon. 2. The mystery of Martin Richardson. Martin Richardson was a 68-year-old retired high school teacher whose gentle spirit and enduring love for nature had made him a beloved figure in Tasmania. For decades, Martin had roamed the island's wild expanses, his curious eyes taking in the subtle changes of seasons and the ancient whispers of the forests. On November 11, 2018, he embarked on what was intended to be a rejuvenating hike along a well-known 2.5-mile trail in the southern wilderness, a path famed for its tranquil beauty, where shafts of sunlight broke through the dense canopy and danced upon the forest floor. Martin was rarely seen without his faithful dog, Bella, a sprightly creature with an instinct for adventure, and that day he was accompanied by his devoted wife, Elaine, whose gentle support had always been his steadying force. Despite managing the challenges of Parkinson's disease, a condition that required him to adhere strictly to his medication schedule, Martin's passion for the natural world remained undiminished. The couple's plan was simple: a scenic walk culminating at a picturesque picnic spot beside a cascading waterfall, a location that had come to symbolize the harmony and quiet joy they found in nature. The morning of the hike was filled with tender moments. Elaine prepared a small picnic basket with Martin's favorite snacks, and the couple exchanged soft smiles as they set off, their footprints marking the path on dew-covered ground. The forest itself seemed to come alive with their presence. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of native birds, and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream created a natural symphony that calmed the mind and warmed the heart. As they wandered deeper into the forest, Elaine became increasingly absorbed in the beauty surrounding them. She captured candid photographs of sunbeams filtering through the trees, the intricate patterns on the bark, and the playful interactions between Bella and the forest creatures. But amid this serenity, an inexplicable shift occurred. After a brief stop near the waterfall, a moment meant to savor the peace of nature, Elaine looked around and found Martin was no longer by her side. Panic gripped her as she frantically called his name, her voice echoing off the moss-covered rocks. Elaine's heart pounded as she retraced their steps, each pause along the trail heightening her anxiety. She recalled subtle moments, a slight stumble, a pause to adjust his medication, a fleeting look of distraction on Martin's face. Each memory was now laced with uncertainty. Within minutes, she contacted local search and rescue teams. Word of Martin's disappearance spread rapidly through the small community, and soon dozens of volunteers were on hand, their faces etched with concern. The search effort was both organized and impassioned. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging scanners circled high above, capturing every minute detail of the forest floor. Teams of search dogs, led by experienced handlers, worked tirelessly, their keen senses scanning the underbrush for any trace of Martin. At various points along the trail, searchers discovered small clues, a broken twig here, a hastily discarded item there, that offered tantalizing hints yet no definitive answers. Throughout the day, Elaine provided tearful accounts of her husband's habits and his unwavering familiarity with these woods. Neighbors recalled Martin's frequent participation in local bushwalking clubs and his encyclopedic knowledge of the region's flora and fauna. Despite his age and medical condition, Martin had always been resolute about venturing into the wild. The contrast between his experienced nature and his sudden disappearance deepened the mystery. In the quiet aftermath of the exhaustive search, as dusk settled over the forest, Elaine found herself alone on the now silent trail. Every shadow and rustle of leaves served as a reminder of the man who had so confidently embraced nature's beauty, and who had inexplicably vanished. The mystery of Martin Richardson's disappearance lingered, a poignant and unanswerable question that weighed heavily on his family, friends, and the entire community. His story became not only a tale of a beloved teacher lost to the wilderness, but also a reminder of the unpredictable and sometimes unforgiving forces of nature. 3. The vanishing of Clara Jenkins. Clara Jenkins was a spirited 34-year-old British expatriate whose zest for life and boundless enthusiasm for the outdoors had made her a prominent figure in her adopted New Zealand community. After relocating in 2021, she immersed herself in the local culture and landscape, finding inspiration in the dramatic mountains, verdant valleys, and ever-changing skies that characterized her new home. As a dedicated landscaper and an intrepid explorer, Clara was no stranger to the wild, unpredictable beauty of nature. On March 5, 2020, Clara set out on an ambitious solo trek through Emerald National Park, a remote, breathtaking region situated roughly 40 miles north of Wanaka. Known for its rugged terrain, majestic vistas, and sudden weather shifts, the park was a destination that both challenged and captivated its visitors. With careful planning and a spirit of fearless adventure, Clara meticulously prepared for her 4-hour journey, mapping out her route in detail and ensuring that family and friends were informed of her plans. Her heart was set on capturing the untamed beauty of the park, a vision that had inspired many of her creative landscaping projects. The day began with Clara setting out under a sky heavy with promise. The air was crisp, and the early light painted the landscape in soft pastels. As she navigated the well-trodden track, she took time to absorb the interplay of light and shadow across ancient rocks and ferns. Along the way, she paused to document the flora and fauna, a vivid tapestry of color and sound that celebrated nature's resilience. Fellow hikers noted her contagious energy and the spark of determination in her eyes, remarking on her innate ability to remain calm even when nature began to display its unpredictable temperament. However, as the trek progressed, the weather took a dramatic turn. Dark clouds gathered swiftly overhead, unleashing torrential rain that transformed the familiar trail into a slippery, treacherous pathway. The sudden downpour muffled the sounds of nature, replacing cheerful bird calls with the relentless drum of rain against foliage. Clara, ever resourceful, attempted to adapt by adjusting her route, confident in her navigation skills and her extensive knowledge of the park's contours. In a brief update sent to her family, she mentioned a minor deviation from the planned path, a decision she believed would keep her safer in the worsening conditions. But the environment grew increasingly hostile. The swollen streams roared with a dangerous intensity, and the once visible landmarks were gradually obscured by the swirling mists and relentless rain. By March 6, Clara's last message had been sent, a message filled with a mix of determination and subtle apprehension. When she did not return as expected, her absence ignited a surge of concern that quickly mobilized the local community and emergency services. A massive search and rescue operation was swiftly launched. Teams of rescue specialists, local police officers, and a host of dedicated volunteers converged on Emerald National Park. High above, helicopters equipped with advanced thermal imaging cameras scoured the dense canopy for any sign of movement. Search dogs, their noses trained to detect even the faintest trace of human scent, wove through the rain-soaked undergrowth. The collective hope was that these combined efforts would yield some trace of Clara's passage. In the midst of the organized chaos, rescuers stumbled upon a heart-wrenching scene along a narrow, fast-flowing creek. A pair of abandoned boots and a solitary backpack, once symbols of Clara's preparedness, lay forgotten on the muddy bank. This grim discovery deepened the mystery. Additional searches uncovered scattered personal effects over a confined area, as if a sudden force had dislodged them from her possession. Witnesses later described the scene as eerily quiet, with nature reclaiming every artifact as if trying to erase the evidence of human struggle. Forensic teams painstakingly collected and analyzed every item, combing through the details for clues that might explain the unthinkable. In the ensuing days, community members, friends, and fellow adventurers gathered to share their memories of Clara, the laughter she brought to every trail, the warmth of her smile, and her unyielding passion for the wild. Her disappearance sparked impassioned discussions in local cafes and online forums, as theories emerged ranging from sudden hypothermia-induced disorientation to the possibility that the treacherous terrain had claimed her in one of nature's unpredictable twists. Sergeant Liam O'Connor and his team continued to probe the scene, piecing together Clara's final moments with painstaking care. Interviews with local hikers recalled brief sightings of a determined woman struggling against the elements. Yet every theory led only to more questions. The haunting image of Clara's abandoned gear, a poignant reminder of a vibrant life halted abruptly, became a symbol of the tragic interplay between human ambition and nature's indifferent might. In the aftermath, as the coroner's report was awaited with bated breath, the community was left with the lingering mystery of Clara Jenkins's final hours. A mystery that, despite the advances in technology and investigative techniques, remained as impenetrable and enigmatic as the wilds of Emerald National Park itself.